Have you ever woken up in the dead of night, feeling like someone or something was watching you? A flicker in the corner of your eye, a shadow darker than the darkness itself. You're not alone. Thousands have encountered them, and some never escaped. Tonight, we uncover 10 terrifying encounters with shadow people, real-life horror stories that will make you question what lurks in the dark. Before we begin, consider hitting subscribe, not just to stay updated, but because knowledge is protection. If these stories teach us anything, it's that the more you know, the better your chances of survival. Are you brave enough to face the shadows? Stay with me, if you dare. The man in the corner. The first time she saw him, she thought it was a trick of the light. A smudge of darkness in the corner of her bedroom, just beyond the reach of the moonlight filtering through the blinds. But as she lay there, heart pounding, she realized it was watching her. Rachel had just moved into her new apartment, a quiet place in an old building. The rent was cheap, almost suspiciously so, but she didn't ask questions. It was her first night alone when she noticed it. A tall, human-shaped shadow, standing motionless in the farthest corner of her room. At first, she blamed exhaustion, rubbing her eyes, willing it to disappear. And for a moment, it did. But the next night, it returned. She woke up feeling uneasy, as if someone had been staring at her for hours. Her eyes darted to the corner, and there it was again, pitch black, unnervingly still, yet unmistakably present. The air felt heavy, pressing against her chest, making it hard to breathe. She wanted to turn on the lamp, to move, to run, but something inside her whispered, "Don't." Then, the worst happened. It moved. A slow, almost imperceptible shift. The shape elongated, stretching like smoke, inching closer to the bed. Rachel felt frozen in place, her body refusing to obey her frantic mind. She could hear a faint rustling noise, like fabric brushing against the walls, though nothing in the room had moved. Summoning every ounce of courage, she forced herself to bolt upright and flick on the bedside lamp. Instantly, the corner was empty. Rachel barely slept that night, keeping every light on until dawn. She convinced herself it was stress, her imagination running wild. But the next evening, as she hesitantly turned off the lights, her stomach dropped. The shadow was closer now. Each night it came back. Each night it inched nearer. Until, one night, Rachel awoke to find it standing right beside her bed. Her scream shattered the silence, and as she scrambled to turn on the light, she swore she saw a pair of gleaming eyes peering at her from the abyss of its form. But when the light flooded the room, there was nothing there. She never slept in that apartment again. But before she left, she made one last mistake. In a desperate bid to prove to herself that she wasn't losing her mind, she snapped a picture of the darkened corner with her phone. When she checked the image, the shadow was there. But now, it was smiling. What would you do if you saw a shadow in your room every night, getting closer and closer? Would you stay and face it, or would you run? Or the shadow in the hallway. It started with footsteps. Late at night, when the world outside had fallen silent, Emily would hear them, slow, deliberate steps echoing through the hallway of her home. At first, she thought it was the house settling, the kind of creaks and groans old places make in the dark. But then she realized they were getting closer. Emily lived alone in a small single-story house. There was no upstairs, no heavy-footed neighbors, no reason for footsteps to be moving through her hallway. Yet every night, just past midnight, the sound would begin. A slow, dragging shuffle, almost as if someone or something was pacing. One night, she decided to check. Clutching her phone in one hand, she crept out of bed and tiptoed toward the hallway. The air felt thick, oppressive, as if she had stepped into something unseen. As she peered into the darkness, her stomach tightened. The hallway stretched before her, shrouded in shadow. But there, at the very end, a shape stood motionless. A human figure, taller than any person should be, its form a pitch-black void against the dim glow of the nightlight in the corner. It had no features, no face, just a looming, pulsing darkness. Emily's breath hitched in her throat. She wanted to run, to slam the door shut, but her body refused to move. Then it started walking. The slow, shuffling steps resumed, each one bringing it closer. A sickening coldness seeped into the air, curling around her like invisible fingers. The shape did not rush, did not lunge. It simply moved forward, step by step, as if it knew she couldn't look away. Then, just as it reached the edge of the dim light, it stopped and whispered her name. Emily never remembered running back to her bedroom. All she knew was that by the time she had the door locked and the blankets pulled over her shaking body, the footsteps had stopped. The next morning, the hallway was empty. But on the wooden floor, just outside her bedroom door, she found two long, blackened footprints, scorched into the wood. She never walked down that hallway after dark again. What would you do if something called your name from the darkness? Would you answer, or pretend you never heard it? The whispering shadow. The first time Daniel heard the whispers, he thought it was the wind. It started faintly, just a murmur drifting through his apartment late at night. He lived alone, yet sometimes, in the quiet hours, he could hear it, a voice too low to make out, just beyond the edge of understanding. But every night it grew clearer. At first he ignored it, maybe the pipes in the walls, maybe his neighbors. But then he realized it was always coming from the same place, his closet. One night, after hours of tossing and turning, he finally worked up the courage to check. Phone in hand, he crept toward the closet door, feeling the air grow colder with every step. His fingers trembled as he reached for the knob, and then he heard it. Not a murmur, not a trick of the wind. A voice, whispering. Daniel froze, his breath caught in his throat. The voice was low, raspy, as if someone were standing right on the other side of the door. Then, in a breath that sent ice down his spine, it spoke his name. Daniel. The light bulb flickered. His heartbeat pounded in his ears. He yanked open the door. Nothing. The closet was empty. But just as relief washed over him, he noticed something. Something that hadn't been there before. A single blackened handprint pressed into the inside of the door. The whispers didn't stop after that. Every night the voice grew closer, the handprints multiplied. Daniel never saw the thing inside his closet, but he knew one thing for sure. It saw him, and it was waiting. If you heard a voice whispering your name from the darkness, would you dare to open the door? The Hat Man's terrifying visit. It started with the feeling of being watched. For weeks, Melissa had the creeping sensation that someone, or something, was in her room at night. She'd wake up, heart pounding, staring into the darkness, convinced she wasn't alone. But there was never anything there, until the night she saw him. She woke up suddenly, her body frozen. She could move her eyes, but nothing else. A crushing weight pinned her to the bed. Sleep paralysis, she thought. But then she noticed the shadow. A tall, looming figure stood at the foot of her bed, motionless, silent. He was wearing a hat. Melissa tried to scream, but no sound came. His shape was darker than the room itself, an emptiness that swallowed all light. The air around him felt wrong, like something that wasn't supposed to exist had stepped into reality. Then he moved. Slowly, deliberately, he stepped toward her. The shadows seemed to stretch and pulse as he approached. Melissa's chest felt tight, her lungs refusing to take in air. He bent down, close enough for her to see his face. Except, there was no face, just a void, a gaping nothing where his features should be. And then he leaned in and whispered something. She didn't understand the words, but the sound of his voice filled her mind like a distant echo from the abyss. It felt like her soul was unraveling. Just as she thought she would pass out, he was gone. Melissa gasped, bolting upright. The paralysis was broken. The room was empty, but she knew he had been there. She didn't sleep for days, but when exhaustion finally won, she awoke to find something new. A black hat, sitting on the chair in the corner of her room, waiting for her. If you woke up to find the Hat Man standing at the foot of your bed, would you dare to look into the darkness where his face should be? The shadows in the woods. It started as a harmless camping trip. Jake, Ben, and Lisa had hiked deep into the forest, setting up camp by an isolated lake. The air was crisp, the stars burned bright, and the only sounds were the distant hoots of owls and the crackling of their fire. Then, as the night deepened, the woods fell silent. No birds, no wind, not even the rustling of leaves. Lisa was the first to notice. "Do you hear that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jake chuckled nervously. "I don't hear anything." "Exactly." Then came the first shadow, not cast by firelight, not by the trees, but moving, watching. Ben froze. "Did you see that?" A tall, inky figure slid between the trees, just beyond the reach of their fire's glow. The shape was humanoid, but wrong. Its limbs too long, its movements too fluid, like it was gliding instead of walking. And then there were more. Dozens of shifting shadows weaving between the trunks, circling the campsite. Each one moved with purpose, but there was no sound, no footsteps, no snapping twigs, nothing. Lisa grabbed the flashlight and aimed it into the darkness. The beam cut through the trees, but the shadows remained, unaffected. Then they stopped, lined up just beyond the fire's glow, staring, waiting. Jake whispered, "We need to leave. Now." But the fire suddenly died, snuffed out as if an unseen hand had smothered it. The darkness swallowed them whole, and in that blackness, the only thing they could hear was breathing, not their own. Something else, close, surrounding them. Jake scrambled for the flashlight, but when he clicked it on, the shadows were gone. The fire roared back to life as if nothing had happened. The woods were still and empty, but on the ground, just at the edge of the campsite, were dozens of long black handprints. If you found yourself surrounded by the shadow people in the woods, would you run? Or would you stand your ground and see what they really want? The night terror that followed it started as a nightmare. Ethan had always suffered from sleep paralysis, but this was different, darker, more real. He'd wake up in his bed, unable to move, unable to scream, as a shadowy figure loomed over him. At first, it stayed at the foot of his bed, watching. But each night it crept closer. One night, it stood beside his bed, inches from his face. Its breath, if it had any, was cold, like a winter breeze seeping into his bones. Then, the worst night came. Ethan woke up frozen, the familiar crushing weight on his chest. He tried to convince himself it was just another episode, that if he waited long enough, it would pass. But then the bed sank. Something was crawling onto it. A long, inky black hand gripped his sheets, then another. The figure slowly pulled itself onto him, its empty face hovering inches above his own. It had no eyes, no mouth, just a void where a face should be. And then, it leaned in. A whisper filled his ears, a voice he felt rather than heard. "You can't wake up if I don't let you." His vision blurred, his heartbeat slowed. The world faded. When he finally snapped awake, the clock read 3:33 a.m. His room was empty, but the sheets beside him were still warm, and on his pillow, as if someone had been laying next to him, was a single, long, black hair. If you woke up frozen, with a shadow crawling onto your bed, would you try to fight it? Or would you close your eyes and hope it's just a dream? The shadow in the rearview mirror. It was past midnight when Lucas finally left his friend's house, the road ahead swallowed by darkness. The highway was deserted, the only sound the hum of his tires against the pavement. That's when he saw it. A figure standing on the roadside. It was tall, unnaturally thin, and completely black, deeper than the night itself. No features, no face. Just an inky silhouette against the glow of his headlights. Lucas barely had time to react before he sped past it, his breath catching in his throat. But curiosity gnawed at him. He glanced in the rearview mirror. The figure was gone. Relieved, he let out a shaky chuckle. Just a trick of the light. Right? Then, movement. Something shifted in the back seat. Lucas's heart nearly stopped. He gripped the wheel, his knuckles white, and dared to look up. The mirror reflected more than just the empty road. A dark shape loomed behind him. It was sitting in the back seat. His breath hitched. The figure didn't move, didn't make a sound. But he could feel it watching. The car suddenly felt too small, too suffocating. Lucas wanted to turn to see if it was real, but he was too afraid. Then, from the mirror, the shadow tilted its head and whispered his name. Lucas slammed on the brakes. The car skidded to a stop. He gasped for air, his body trembling. Slowly, so painfully slowly. He turned to look at the back seat. Nothing. It was empty. But when he turned back to the mirror, his stomach twisted. The figure was still there, and this time, it was grinning. If you saw a shadowy figure in your rearview mirror, would you pull over or keep driving into the unknown? The shadow under the door. It started with a sound, a soft, shuffling noise just outside the bedroom. At first, Mia thought it was the wind rattling the old apartment walls, but as she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, she heard it again. Closer this time. A slow, deliberate, dragging sound. She reached for her phone. 3:12 a.m. Her breath caught in her throat when she noticed the light under the door, or rather, what was blocking it. A shape, a shadow. It stood still, motionless, as if listening. Mia's pulse pounded in her ears. "Who's there?" she wanted to ask, but the words died in her throat. Then, it moved. Long, thin fingers stretched under the door. Not hands, just shadows. They slithered across the wooden floor, reaching, searching. Mia clamped a hand over her mouth, afraid to breathe. The fingers twitched, dragging along the floor like the legs of some unnatural creature. Then they stopped. Silence. Mia didn't dare move. The weight of the darkness pressed against her, suffocating, unrelenting. Then, a whisper, not from the hallway, from inside the room. The moment she heard it, a soft, rasping breath behind her. She knew. She was not alone. If a shadow reached under your door in the dead of night, would you stay frozen in fear or try to run? The unseen roommate. When Eric moved into his new apartment, he never expected he'd be sharing it with something unseen. At first, it was small things. Items moved when he wasn't looking. The TV turned on by itself. The shower ran in the middle of the night. He brushed it off. Faulty wiring, forgetfulness, an overactive imagination. Then the whispers started. Late at night, just as he was drifting off. A faint voice, too soft to make out the words, but always right behind him. One night, he joked aloud, "Guess I've got a ghost roommate." And the whispering stopped. For a while, things were quiet. Too quiet. Then, it happened. Eric came home late, exhausted. He tossed his keys on the counter and froze. His closet door was open. He was sure, dead sure, he had closed it that morning. A A chill crawled down his spine as he stepped closer. Inside, his clothes were rearranged. But that wasn't the worst part. Someone had written on the inside of the door, "You finally noticed me." Eric stumbled back, heart hammering. He grabbed his phone, his hands shaking as he turned on the flashlight. That's when he saw it, the outline of a shadow, standing right behind him in the mirror. If you discovered a message from an unseen presence in your home, would you stay to find out what it wants? Or run and never look back? The shadow that left a mark. When Lisa woke up that morning, she felt off. A deep, unsettling exhaustion clung to her, as if she hadn't truly slept. But what really caught her attention was the bruise, a dark, hand-shaped mark on her wrist. She lived alone. Trying to shake the eerie feeling, Lisa brushed it off. Maybe she had bumped into something. Maybe she was just imagining things. But that night, as she lay in bed, drifting off, she felt it. Pressure. Something cold, unseen, pinning her down. Her eyes snapped open. She couldn't move. She couldn't scream. And then she saw it, a figure in the corner, darker than the shadows, watching. It loomed over her, its form shifting, flickering like smoke caught in a silent breeze. Then it reached out. A cold, invisible grip wrapped around her wrist, the same wrist that had been bruised. A searing pain burned into her skin. Then, nothing. Lisa gasped as she shot upright, suddenly free. Her room was silent. The figure was gone. But when she turned on the light, her breath caught in her throat. The bruise was still there. Darker. Deeper. But now she could see something new. It wasn't just a handprint. It was a symbol. A mark left by something that didn't want to be forgotten. If you woke up with an unexplained mark on your body after a shadowy encounter, would you try to uncover the truth? Or would you be too afraid of what you might find? The darkness holds many secrets, and sometimes those secrets stare back. These encounters are terrifying, but the real question is, what do shadow people want? Are they ghosts, interdimensional beings, or something even more sinister? One thing is certain. If you ever see one, don't look away. Which story sent chills down your spine the most? And have you ever had your own eerie encounter? Let me know in the comments if you're not too scared to remember. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell, because you never know when the next nightmare will come knocking. Sleep tight and watch the shadows.